trying to figure out ultimately what is
It's still a mystery as to why it took them. Hey everyone, welcome to Primetime Crime. I'm your host, Lauren Conlon, along with my favorite former homicide prosecutor, Jarrett Ferrantino. Hey, Jarrett.
Hey, Lauren. Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
So here we are. We are doing another premiere, which I think is fun. I had a really fun time last week being in the chat with everybody. So yeah, we're doing it again. And we mentioned we will be doing pop-up lives, but for now, this seems to be working. So hopefully you guys like it and you enjoy it. But
so I should say good evening, everyone.
Right. Good evening. I mean, as you can see, it's still light out here. But so Jarrett, we have a lot to cover today. Two of the cases, we're going to be focusing on Delphi, Karen Reed, John O'Keefe, and the Brendan Banfield au pair double murder. So we'll kick things off with Delphi. And like I said, things are getting heated. I mean, people are attacking each other. This is one of those unprecedented cases where it seems to be really, really difficult to navigate through all of the drama, the extra drama, if that makes sense. But Jarrett, if you just want to update everybody on what's going on and your take on things up through yesterday, which was Tuesday, November 5th, that would be great.
So yesterday was day 16. Today is day 17 of the trial. The defense has taken the reins in their aggressive defense of Richard Allen. So my assessment of the prosecution's case always been it wasn't the strongest, okay? Their major piece of physical evidence is the bullet that was found at the crime scene that was, as the prosecution says, cycled through Richard Allen's gun, okay? Pretty powerful piece of evidence. And obviously the bridge guy video with a person that matches the size, shape, and clothing that Richard Allen happened to be wearing on February 13th. However, what has now come out over the past several months through pretrial filings, and now the world knows, Richard Allen has made these inculpatory statements, admissions and confessions to his family while he was incarcerated. Now, it's important to note the most powerful piece of evidence came after the arrest. So at some point before that evidence, the prosecution here did not know prior to charging Richard Allen, they were going to have these confessions. So originally look at the Delphi murder case against Richard Allen for the murder of Abby and Libby. You consider video, the bullet, his original statement to investigators, things of that nature. Add now to it this arriving confession evidence. Okay, pretty powerful stuff. Now, what you're looking for in those, and I've had jailhouse confessions, I've had statements during recorded visits that are very powerful. But usually, I would say the cherry on the top of your prosecution cake, okay? It's not often your whole case. In this case, you have to look at, and what the defense is saying, first the prosecution puts forward. And when you are looking at a confession, you're looking at the knowledge and the facts put forth by the speaker about the case. And Richard Allen, in his confessions, made statements about facts that only the person who would have been responsible would know. Things about seeing a white van, him being interrupted, the placement of the branches as opposed to twigs or things of that, sticks or things of that nature. There were statements that would suggest to the listener, this person was there. This person is aware of certain facts that were never made public. He also made a statement that his gun made a sound and moved, and that may have been when the bullet was ejected. Again, now commenting on evidence, essentially filling in some of the gaps that are in the case. Now, as a defense attorney, your job is to, number one, wrestle with this confession. You have to say, how the hell do we deal with this, Richard, these confessions? And by the way, he made them to his wife. Here's the thing. Why would Richard Allen lie to his wife about being responsible for this, or his support system, and to his mother too? Why would he lie to the two people that are telling him they're there for him? In fact, when he makes those confessions, he says to them, "Will you still love me if I did?"
Right. Can I ask you this?
Sure.
Sorry, and I just might be a little confused on some of the timelines. He confessed to his mother and to his wife. Is this while he was in solitary, or is this while? I'm just trying to get, because I know a lot of the argument is his confessions came from a place of him going mentally insane, and I'm just trying to balance that all out, I guess.
So the statements coincide with after periods of solitary confinement. Okay. So, and we're going to get into that. That's really, so my first thought is he has the wherewithal to negotiate with his mom and his wife to say to them, "I'm about to tell you something terrible I did. I want to make sure knowing
blurry,
this."
By the way, it's so weird that you're blurry. Oh no, that's better. That's better. I just feel like people want to see you. So.
Oh God, I don't know, but so those that to me that makes them more reliable, because he has the state of mind to say, "I understand I'm about to tell you something horrible. I need to know you're still going to be my support system. If you tell me not to say it, maybe I'm going to pull back and not say it. I need to get this off my chest." Those are facts to me as a prosecutor that have indicia of reliability. I would say these confessions are good. However, the defense can't just fall over and accept the gospel. Okay. They have some issues with these confessions. Number one, Richard Allen was in solitary confinement, not as a punitive measure. He wasn't being punished and placed in the hole. He was there because he was in protective custody. And there are times, so he wasn't acting up in the jail and placed there. He was there for his own protection. So what the defense has put forth are these experts, psychiatrists who are saying, Harvard psychiatrists are saying he was in a state of delirium. And when you get into, and that's a term and a condition that many people in jail suffer from, often in detox from opiates and things of that nature. When you get into a state of delirium, you can hallucinate. You can tell people what they want to hear. You can have flights of fancy, things of that nature. And your statements are not reliable, including false confessions. And these psychiatrists are saying, we've seen that.
Yeah. That's
the problem. So now the jury's going to say, okay, I heard Richard Allen, the guy who was admits to being on the bridge, admits to being dressed as bridge guy, admits to being there at that time and place, whose bullet casing matches the gun that was found in his house, confessing to killing 2 young children to his wife and mother. And I got to write that off on him being confused or in a state of delirium.
Right.
Good luck.
Right. Yeah. No, that's an interesting point. Like I said, I've kind of been staying out of this case. I really appreciate hearing the perspective of all sides of people who feel that he could be innocent, people that feel that he could be guilty. And I think the biggest thing here is, Abby and Libby deserve justice. And it's almost just like you really want to trust law enforcement that they arrested the right person here, but there's always the possibility, what if they didn't? Is that justice for Abby and Libby? It's not. And it's just, it's awful if there is somebody out there. And I'm not saying there is. Like I said, Richard Allen could quite possibly be the guy. I don't know enough about this case, I think, to make a firm decision here on where I stand, but it's like, I just feel horrible. I just feel bad all around. I have an icky feeling.
And that's the danger. The danger here is you have 2 dead little girls. You just look at the guy in the chair and say, the cops arrested him. He must be responsible. Now, another issue that's been coming up pretty prominently is the technology issue. The phone, obviously the phone is a huge piece of evidence. They found the recording on the phone. And there was a lot of discussion as to whether or not a wired headphone was put into the cell phone, and why At what point it stopped communicating with the tower? At what point was it outputting music? Was it recording? I'm going to tell you something. I don't see the jury caring too much about that. I think that's just an effort to show the jury that don't believe everything the DA is putting forth as gospel here.
Okay.
We can negate some of those things. To me, I think the inescapable truths of this case are Alan was there, Abby and Libby were there at the time and the place of the murder. Is it Richard? What does that phone operating at 4 a.m. or 5:45 p.m. or 1:30 p.m. really do? We all know, look at the Karen Reed Google searches and things of that nature.
Yeah,
Timestamps aren't always what they are. There's a big issue of the health app that was still running on, highly egghead stuff that juries are going to, I don't know. I don't think it's as significant as people think.
Let me ask you this. There's been a lot of talk, and again, I'm just reading what I see on social media and just some commentary. I have no opinion on this right now, but there's some talk about Judge Gull and the rulings. And let's say Richard Allen is found guilty. I mean, I feel like from what I'm reading, isn't that like an immediate appeal? Like from what,
you're talking. So the big ruling was that he didn't let the Odinism defense in.
There was something else. There was something else as well the other day. Something about, my gosh, one of the witnesses on Monday, Brad something. There was something along those lines. I'll have to find it, but people were very much up in arms about this ruling. So let me see. The defense.
Well, look, I think so. Anybody
confinement and unspent bullet evidence. Yeah. Okay. It didn't really. Yeah. It's not exactly what I thought. But anyway.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you this: if you're in the Richard Allen camp and you feel like this was Ron Logan or an independent actor or an act of Odinism, you're not going to agree when Judge Gull makes these tough calls. Okay. I disagree with the Odinism concept. I think it should be in there. And I've said it on our show more than once. But at the same time, that standard is an abuse of discretion. So when it goes up to a higher court, and it will be appealed, if Richard Allen's convicted, it will be appealed. These cases have a life of their own post-conviction. But really, that standard is abuse of discretion. You would have to show that Judge Gull abused discretion, not just made the wrong call.
Okay.
Because, and what that says is, like, the appeals courts defer to a trial court's discretion. They say, look, you're the one there seeing this. Short of you abusing your job, essentially, we're not going to overturn your rulings.
Right. Okay. Well, I will, it's tough. Like, I guess I like to observe these trials on my own and come up with my own opinions based on what I observe. So it is hard sometimes to and I'm finding this I'm very interested in the Daniel Penny trial in New York City. Daniel Penny was the ex-Marine accused of holding Jordan Neely in a chokehold. And it's so tough to catch up on everything, just reading it. It's kind of just like, well, I wish I saw this. I wish I heard this. I wasn't there. So it's tough for me to come to my own conclusion. So that's why I think I've been kind of staying out of this case, because I just I don't know. It's weird for me. I'm finding it hard to form an opinion based on reading other people's opinions.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. My opinion on Richard Allen is he's either guilty, and I've said this, or he's the unluckiest guy in all of Delphi. I mean, think about it. He was there, dressed the part, his bullet casing matches. He's confessing to the crime. He's the size and shape of Bridge Guy. You're like, my God. So what does that mean? At the end of the day, I think Richard Allen's going down for this. And I think the confessions are what sealed his fate.
And again, I just feel like it's going to be an automatic appeal. You know what I mean? Like, it's just.
Well, and here's the other thing. Like, they say you can't ring the bell. The jury heard the confessions. They heard horrible, horrible things. And I'm telling you, that human moment where he's asking them if they're still going to love him, that moment shows me he's coming clean, like he's cleansing himself of this, and he's thinking of his life moving forward. That's what, to me, spoke volumes. You can't unring that bell. You cannot write that off to delirium. I just think it's too powerful.
That's really interesting, Jarrett. Okay. Well, I mean, if you are in the camp that Richard Allen is innocent, pop in the comments and let us know what you think about what Jarrett just said about that part of the confession specifically. Will you still love me? All right. Well, we'll keep everybody updated, or Jarrett will, and I will listen because, again, I know this trial is very important to a lot of people. So I did want to make sure that we covered it. But now let's get to Karen Read and some things that are going on. Jarrett's favorite, Karen Read.
I like this portion of Karen Read, though, because it's not a question of whether or not Karen Read did this. It's a question of
right now.
What do we do now?
Right. Exactly. And to be fair, I have to just say something about this because this case has blown up and it's become such a spectacle. I do think at this point, this might not be a popular opinion, but I think that the Commonwealth is spending way too much time and money on getting Karen Read in jail or in prison and convicted. I think that there are a lot of dangerous people on the street, and this seems to be at a point where it's just like, really, guys, like we're still, and we've discussed this. It never should have been murder, in my opinion. It's just like, and you said the same thing. It's just like now they're, you've got a special prosecutor. Now they're bringing in these new whatchamacallit, what was Trooper Paul? Accident recon and
reconstructionists and the engineers, the biomechanical people that we
they are spending a lot of time and money now on this, all to.
Well, what did we say? What did we say when this thing went south? Remember, and you and I were in New York. We were talking about it, and we did an episode. And I said they're going to amplify Trooper Paul. They're going to have their own experts, and people were saying that's crazy. There won't be a mechanical engineer or a biomechanical engineer that'll support that. I went, you can get an expert say anything.
Well, I mean, it just seems to me like this has gotten a little bit out of control in a way where it's like, okay, I mean, and look, it's most likely because they don't like the support that she's getting. It is, there's a lot of supporters out there and a lot of people dragging the police, dragging the Commonwealth. So, I mean, it just seems like this is more about them. It's like, I'm not saying this is like Menendez, but like, when they lost, LA County lost OJ, lost, Rodney King. And it's almost like, okay, we need to do this now because we look so bad. That's
I've been in those rooms. In those rooms. Prosecutors read the paper. We're sensitive to it. We can't rebut that stuff. It sucks. But also believe there are truly people on that prosecution team that see Karen Read as a cop killer. They see her as having murdered John O'Keefe. And when they see it that way, they believe it. They go full steam ahead. And I always, when it came to Trooper Paul, they brought a knife to a gunfight. They did not bring a sufficiently qualified expert to draw the conclusions. And his entire case and his position was rebutted. First of all, he was cross-examined very effectively, and his entire opinion was rebutted by a biomechanical engineer. That's to the merits of the case. The question is, are we ever going to get back there? I know that's the intention of the Commonwealth. The question is, now we're in appellate world. Now we have different lawyers, I would say like more academic lawyers, not trial lawyers, arguing at the Supreme Municipal Court in Massachusetts today. And you and I were just listening, and our colleague, brother counsel, was doing an analysis on the arguments, which I thought were spot on. That guy should run for an appellate court because he knows his stuff. And he knows how. Here's the issue. The issue right now that's being litigated is not whether Karen Read is guilty. The question is, did the jury acquit her, number one, of certain charges? Mm-hmm. Did the judge follow proper protocol in receiving the third note about the deadlock of the jury or the impasse of the jury, not further inquiring into the status of the impasse, whether or not they had been at an impasse as to every charge, or did the defense lawyers mess up when they didn't object to the judge's failure to make those inquiries and to say, Judge, you need to ask the jury certain things. Now, it happened really fast. Judge Bev dismisses the jury. They go back into the jury room. They're about to leave. And the appellate court saying, well, why didn't anybody raise this objection at that time? You know, when you still have the sanctity of the court, you still have this jury together to bring them back in and ascertain where they were on certain charges. I learned something today. Okay. I thought they had a stronger argument of this phantom acquittal, okay, where they can say, we have 4, maybe 5 jurors, maybe 5, who say Karen Reed was acquitted of the murder charge. We were deadlocked on manslaughter.
Right.
Okay, which I get totally, and probably that's the right result in this case. But to be an acquittal, you apply these elements, and these are no joke. There was an actual acquittal. The jury acknowledges it in open court. They file their jury slip. The judge accepts it, and they're dismissed to trigger the word acquittal. It can't happen this way. And the court was all over Karen Reed's lawyers. And
they were. I thought it was awkward. I was like,
yeah. And I like the way brother counsel saying, like, get on, move on. You're getting your butt kicked on this issue. Right. And he was right, because the bigger issue here is there was this procedural failure in the judge to make that inquiry and say, look, we need to make sure that's not what happened here. And the other thing, he was asking for what they call post-trial voir dire. Okay.
Yeah. This is how but I thought that was the best thing he said. Cause I'm kind of like, can we just poll the damn jury already and just be done with this?
And I thought, okay, so with that, post-trial voir dire means bring these folks back in again from their lives months later and say, did this happen? Did this happen? But Massachusetts law is this. The only time that happened is not about the deliberation process or the merits of the case. It's if racism was a factor, if some extra judicial or outside of the courtroom piece of evidence was considered in the deliberations. It's never been done to re-examine the level of whether or not a deadlock or there was an underlying acquittal of a charge. It's never been utilized that way. So I didn't feel great. I don't think the court was buying their argument. The only way Karen Reed does not get retried for murder is if the DA pulls the murder charge. That's the way it's going to go. I think it's going to happen.
I mean, I guess for me, I felt like it was a combination of things. So yes, it was disappointing that the defense did not speak up. However, I'm sure in that moment, that fleeting moment, they did think that a mistrial was a success, right? Because she did not get convicted.
Well, they were, and the other thing, if you heard in those arguments this morning, the judge kept saying, one of the judges said, you guys acknowledge they were at impasse. The first 2 times you're saying, yes, they're deadlocked, move on. We got a mistrial. 2 of the 3 times you're telling us, as you sit there, time number 3, you no longer believe they're at an impasse. You think it's an acquittal situation. Then the answer to that is, how the hell do we know? We're not back there. We're not allowed to be back there.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then my other part of that is, I thought that the instructions were confusing from the start. There was the whole argument, where Karen smirked and she got yelled at because of Cannoni saying the jury forms, they are what they are, shut the hell up, move on. And then they eventually changed them. I just, I did feel like, and also there have been reports, and again, this is not coming directly from the jury to me. This is from just reports I've read, that they were unclear on the fact that they could speak up. They thought only the 4-person could speak up. I mean, there seemed to be a lot of communication issues. So that's where I guess I'm kind of like, just poll the jury here. Just do that and let's be done. But
I still don't think you get there. I don't think you get to an. I think looking at the way the law is, assuming all that happens, I still don't think you get to an acquittal. I think it's just not an acquittal. I think that it's entirely possible that's what happened, but it's still not going to get you to where Karen Reed's lawyers want her to get to.
And look, Jared, I think you can agree with me. She's not a murderer. She's not like, I mean, I really don't see this woman as a cold-blooded murderer. And I don't want to dispute the evidence anymore, but it's just like, it's like they want us to believe she, like that photo of her and John at the bar where they're laughing, and it's kind of like, oh, is this where she's plotting his murder later? Like, I'm just like, you know what I mean?
And you make a good point, and I agree with you. I don't think this is a murder case, but here's the thing. They're not the ones who make that decision. A jury is. Like, a judge can't say, a judge doesn't look at this and say, well, it's Karen Reed, doesn't look like a murderer, as opposed to the next person who comes in who's, got more tattoos on his face than Post Malone.
I don't even mean that. I guess
I just look or feel like that. This court isn't even thinking about that.
I'm not trying to like show that she's this like privileged white woman that doesn't look like a murderer. I'm just saying, if I went into this where, listen, I thought I would have been a good juror because I was leaning towards her maybe not being guilty because I was looking at all these weird coincidences and I'm like, this is weird. But you know what? I'm open to, being swayed during the trial, watch the trial. In my opinion, the state did not meet their burden of proof, and I did not believe that she hit him based on what I saw in court, okay? That is all I am basing this on. If for the second trial, they come forward and prove some way, rationally, logically, through the laws of physics, that she did hit him, okay, I will say, okay, I guess she did. But however, I will never roll over and say she backed into him in a jealous fit of rage. I will never, ever say that because I do not believe that happened.
Or intended to kill him.
What's that?
Or intended to kill him.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't think she even purposely ran it. Like, let's say again, it's proved to me that, she did hit him. I will always believe it was an accident. If again, it is proven. I do not believe that. And again, as a female, having been in relationships where you've had too much to drink and you called your ex and you've screamed at them, whatever, I just feel like if I did something to them purposely, I'm not going to call them after it and berate them.
As your lawyer, I'm going to caution you from making any further statements.
Okay. You know what I'm saying, but anyway, so just to get back to it, we heard the argument, this morning. I thought it was kind of a pitiful argument. But it was, the back and forth and the discourse was respectful. It was fine. It was, I just don't think it's going to fly. I don't think but I think we will know. And like, they make this in 180 days or less or something like that. But we'll see. And then the defense and the Commonwealth both submitted a joint motion to postpone the January trial. They want to push it back to April. I think they're citing like it's really cold in January and Massachusetts. It's very snowy.
Yeah, and I think the January date was ambitious.
Yeah, and they want new witnesses and based on their schedules and all that stuff. But I just like for the O'Keefe family, for Karen Reed, I just feel like for everybody involved, why drag this out? It's kind of like, let's just do this. Like, I don't know. That's me.
This case is more complicated, if you can believe it or not, than it was before. So, and one of the things you said is like, you don't see her as a murderer. And I get what you're saying. And it's like all these resources put upon this case and what is being ignored in that particular district. I mean, look, if these cases get a hold of your office, man, and they like, if I was running a DA's office and I had a case like this, I would have a mini task force. I'd probably bring in somebody from the outside because you still got to run the rest of your office. So it's like when I see something like this, any of those DAs out there watching, I'm willing to come in on a crazy case like that too. But because they just clobber your office, they just kill you.
Yeah. So. Totally. So the last thing I want to talk about with this is, so not a lot. And let me just add this: the civil trial, the O'Keefe or the civil suit, that was postponed until after the criminal trial as well.
It's fairly typical. That's fairly typical.
That's right.
So that basically says the civil trial is about money damages. We do not want to disrupt the criminal justice system. We are willing to hang back until, and if the criminal trial goes a certain way, it may go a long way in resolving the civil claim.
Now, something Karen brought up in her Vanity Fair article, which was very favorable to her, she brought up the fact, she said something like, well, why, if the civil suit was about John and not about kind of nailing me, why wouldn't they file this right after he died? If I was arrested, she was already arrested, she was facing trial. And I'm genuinely wondering, what would be a reason that the family did not file this until after the mistrial? Especially
first of all, the statute of limitations, I believe, is 2 years in Massachusetts. So they have 2 years from the date of death to file. So oftentimes you wait for the criminal trial to happen so it does not interfere with those proceedings. When they had the mistrial, they know we're not going to get another trial in 2 years. Just launch this, get this thing filed. So a strategic decision to wait. Here's the other thing. Whenever there's a civil trial or a civil claim filed, collateral or parallel to a criminal case, inevitably a defense lawyer is going to ask this question. They're going to say, Mrs. Conn, isn't it true you filed a civil case against my client? And isn't it true you're suing my client for money? And isn't that what you're all about? You want money. And if he's not convicted here today, you lose money. That takes that out of the equation. And when that happens, you're like, I had to deal with that several times. Like, I'll pull out the complaint. I'm like, wait a minute. The civil case says the same thing,
Wait, so you're saying that it was a good move because the defense could have brought that up at the trial and saying, let's say Paul O'Keefe was on the stand. They could have been like, Mr. O'Keefe, isn't it true you're suing Karen Reed for XYZ money and all you want is money? Okay, so it could have been a strategic thing.
It absolutely was. And then when the mistrial happened, they're like, we can't wait for another trial. We're going to run up against the limitations.
Right.
So what was John O'Keefe's date of death?
It was January 29th, 2022, or January 20, something like that, or 28th, 29th of 2022.
Okay, so they were running up against the statute.
Yeah.
So they need to get that in there. And it's always a better practice to wait. So your civil case does not create a cloud or any complication in the criminal end.
Okay, that's helpful to know, because I kind of was thinking the same thing. I'm like, well, why did they wait this long, especially knowing that the statute would be up or whatever? But it makes sense. That could be used against them. Absolutely. Okay, and then now this is the last thing I want to bring up. There was a supplemental discovery motion and from the Commonwealth, and what they did seem to be very, they want transcripts from Karen's interviews. We all knew that was coming, and Karen is well aware of that as well. And they seem to be hyper-focused on Trooper Paul. And it seems like on the discovery motion, there was number 9, and it said October 25th email from Daniel Linden. So I researched this a bit, and Daniel Linden just appears to be like a guy on Twitter for all intents and purposes. I don't know anything else about him, but he came forward and basically made and created this new key cycle that could potentially prove, according to him, that it's possible that Karen hit John. Now, he's saying this, but the problem with him saying this is the key cycle, it's weird. They don't know exactly when she turned the car on, and that's the issue. So I pulled this up. Now, this was, somebody wrote this on Reddit. Okay, so take it for what it is. But they did post Daniel J. Linden's Twitter, and I'm going to pull that up right now just to show you guys, because it's interesting. And like I said, if this guy is correct in his findings, and let's say, right, we don't know when she turned the car on, but his assessment is closer than Trooper Paul's, which is not hard. I mean, how does that make the Commonwealth look, that they put a dunce cap on the stand the first time and under oath, right, and saying that this guy's going to testify that she hit him? How does that make them look?
So all right. So before we go there, so Lyndon is saying,
you can see this. Hold on.
Okay. So what is the issue when Karen reached? They're saying she stopped the car, or she shut her car off at some point before she dropped down.
Key cycles 1164 through 1166 were not part of Trooper Paul's testing. Trooper Paul's testimony states he noted. Hold on. I can't. This is like so small. You know what? This person on Reddit depicts what he said. Let me read that while this is up, because if you can kind of see it, my eyes are really bad right now. So basically, this guy believes that Trooper Paul was wrong about when his testing showed up in the text stream data. His starting point for his theory, Daniels, is to assume that Trooper Paul's testing began at key cycle 1167. And this means that all the triggers that are shown on key cycles 1164 and 1165 are not from Trooper Paul's testing. From this hypothetical, Lyndon can count backwards and make the triggers on 1162 match up with Karen's driving to and from Fairview on 1/29/2022. If he includes one major speculation about the driving during key cycle 1164. So that's the issue. They are speculating on this one point, this one key cycle. So it's interesting here. And again, I have a hard time following this completely, but I thought about this where I'm like, okay, where
this is, the Commonwealth has acknowledged that an email between Trooper Paul and Lyndon has been turned over in discovery.
I don't think he emailed Trooper Paul. I think it was just Lyndon emailed the Commonwealth and said, I figured this out. That's, I mean,
okay.
You know,
and they want. So so basically, and well, that was my next question. Was it an email from Lyndon to the state, or was it somebody to Lyndon after he posted that?
You know what? I don't know. Yeah, that's a really good question. It just
either way, I think here's the thing: if they want to take issue or put what Lyndon is saying and the impact that those key cycles could have on Paul's theory, they could subpoena him themselves. They would have the original email from him, and they could say, "All right, we'll put you on the stand." And again, I don't know what Lyndon's background is, but apparently
he's an engineer.
Oh well, I mean, so they could go to him directly too. You know, they and it sounds like they have, because they know that email exists. What the Commonwealth is doing by providing is to say, we had it too. And then what I would say is, did you interview Lyndon? Did you talk to him? If you did, there's no truth to this. This guy raises this issue. And did you ever talk to Trooper Paul about this fact?
And like, this is the problem. There's no evidence that the key cycle started on 1164. That's the problem. You essentially could pick anything out of a hat, right? And say, oh, let's start it here. Let's start it there based on my speculation. So I think that where this guy is clearly much closer than Trooper Paul ever could be, I think it's just the entire picture here, right? MSP, you've got this guy that, you know, you've got a woman's life who's on the line, and you're going to have this moron testify. That it doesn't make sense to me, I guess, where it's like a random guy off Twitter who looks like he might not even have graduated school yet. I mean, I don't really know. This could be a master's, whatever. But it's like, you're going to let this guy come forward and be like, oh, look at this. I know more than the MSP does. How does that look, Jared?
X is an amazing concept, or Twitter, you know, but here's the thing. And I get that Trooper Paul left a lot to be desired, but as the Commonwealth, you play the hand you're dealt. Like, Paul's the guy he's the one at that barracks that's doing that kind of work now. Nobody knew they were going to, like, and I'm not defending his ultimate conclusions. What happens if you get a dolt as a witness, like, you're like, this guy is, let's say you have a blood spatter evidence, right? And you're like, this sucks. I got to go get my own blood spatter guy. And you have that right. If you're like, that's why I always said they should have acknowledged the shortcomings in Trooper Paul before they put him on that stand, or put him on the stand and supplement his testimony with the biomechanical. That's the way you do it. That's why they were woefully unprepared for what came in cross and ultimately in the defense. So that's why they're in the position they're in.
Yeah. And listen, Trooper Paul, man, it's like, who's going to ever trust that guy again? If I live in that area.
I would hope he was intended, but it sucks for him. I mean, like I said, these guys, you know, he's a state police trooper. He got in this business. He thought, like all of a sudden and I speak at state police academies and I tell them, like, I know where you think your career is headed. You have no idea where you might be the one who vacuums debris out of the back of a trunk that was used to carry a body, and you're on the stand for 2 days about a hair that you pulled out of a trunk. And you thought to yourself, boy, I thought I was going to be chasing bad guys, so who knows?
It's really crazy. I just, like I said, I saw this and I was like, oh boy, this is like, here we go. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. I think you could take that many different ways, right? Many different ways, but I guess we'll wait and see. I mean, I know, again, this is your favorite case, Jarrett, but hopefully we won't have to talk about it.
It's growing on me.
Okay. Well, the legal stuff, I know it is. All right. Now, lastly for today, let's talk about the au pair plea deal. And this is the case out of Fairfax County. It's the double murder from February of 2023. Christine Banfield's wife, mother, pediatric nurse, and Joseph Ryan, an unsuspecting random man that was lured to the house by Christine's husband, Brendan Banfield, allegedly, and their au pair, Juliana Magalhaes. I'm getting used to saying that. Brendan and Juliana were in a relationship, and they came up with this plan. Now we know that per Juliana, a lot more about this plan. And Juliana was arrested in October of 2023 on a murder charge for taking the fatal shot at Joseph Ryan, And then Brendan Banfield was not arrested until almost a year later in September of 2024 for the murder of his wife and Joseph Ryan. So here we are. Juliana was set to go to trial, the au pair, this month. And Brendan Banfield's trial is still, as of right now, February of 2025. But Juliana just accepted a plea deal. And this was as of October 2024. So she pled guilty to manslaughter. And the murder charge was dropped, as well as the firearm charge that was dropped. She was facing a lot of time. And now she could be getting time served right after Brendan's trial. So Jarrett, I mean, this is wild. So she essentially, and during, again, this is something that hasn't been televised. So I'm reading different reports, but it sounded like Juliana didn't really speak during this hearing. She just pled guilty quietly, and the prosecutor did most of the talking based on what she had explained to him. And wow, so
a couple of things. So to that point, the prosecutor would recite a factual basis.
Yeah.
In the federal system, it's like an aliquot or an allocution. And basically the prosecutor says, you are admitting to manslaughter and here are the facts that support it. And basically here are statements that are actually attributed to you. They read them into the record. The defendant is then asked, are you acknowledging that is true? Yes. Is this in fact what you've done? Now, I'd imagine there was an interpreter in there because Juliana's English is not great. So they need to ensure that she understands fully each and every statement that is made. But first of all, we did an episode on this several weeks ago. So on the underlying facts on how Joe Ryan was lured there, and in an effort of this couple to create a scene where white Christina was being attacked by this BDSM guy that showed up that she met on a website that was all orchestrated by them. But here's the problem as I see it. Here's the problem. Okay. That is an unbelievable deal and a slap on the wrist for Juliana. A ridiculous. I don't know why. I looked at the evidence that's been made public, okay? Much of their story can be rebutted with cell phone technology, Christine's cell phone technology. I don't know why they needed her so badly, okay?
That's a great point. That's a really good point.
When you need someone desperately, the deal gets sweeter, okay? You could have said to Juliana, you're looking at life here. You conspired for a period of weeks with your lover, you know, to kill his wife, who is the mother of the child you're taking care of. It's the, you know, she called her boss on the body cam. She's the mom of the house that you live. So it's a huge, and here's the other thing. Juliana is very cunning. She lied on the body cam. She lied to Christine Banfield while she's carrying on this affair for a long, long time with her husband, living under the same roof. She concocted this plan with the husband, claims she tried to walk away from the plan. He said, "Oh, we're in this too deep." Okay. All right. Right. That's complete bullshit. And then she had, here's another thing nobody ever talks about. She had blood on her hands in that body cam video.
I didn't notice that.
Oh, it's caked on.
Really? Yeah. I didn't actually notice that.
He has blood on her hands. And she claims that Brendan wiped blood from Christine on the arms of Joe Ryan, which is blood transfer. That's a significant piece of forensic evidence that's in the case. Meanwhile, on the video, Juliana has blood on her hands. So that's another problem, which looks like, why do you have blood transfer on your hands?
That's a good point. Unless she's going to say she went and tried to help Christine. I don't know. But you brought up a really good point, and I've thought about this as well. The digital footprint in this case, it's going to be insane. I'm guessing that we're going to see crazy text messages during this trial, and that it's just going to make our stomach turn. But yeah, this case, right? They really must need her to seal the deal here, or maybe it's just like, if this is all true, which I believe it is, Brendan Banfield is a sick fucking individual that should never see the light of day.
But so she's no, like, here's the thing.
I agree with you. I agree with you. However, I believe he was the mastermind. And even though she is an adult, she was easily manipulated. But I'm not giving her a pass, please. Right. It sickens me. I said this, like, you have a choice in life, right? Make the fucking right choice. Like, you are always given a choice. If it's a messy one, this is what Juliana did to this little girl that she was taking care of, that she supposedly cared about. She fucking took her mother away from her. Not only that, this girl is going to have to live with her father being that. It's awful. It's awful. It's unspeakable. So I guess I'm kind of like, are they afraid? And I don't know why they would be, because it's been reported that the forensics, like with the blood and everything, they have gone over this for a year to ensure that that what they have is correct, and that Brendan positioned the bodies. He moved the bodies. I mean, I believe that.
Well, they want him more than her, no doubt.
Exactly. And I believe he's more of a threat than she is. I think she should get the hell out of this country, never come back. I hope you have a horrible life. Honestly, like and you know what? I hope she doesn't sleep at night. That's what I hope. I hope she is haunted by this, that maybe she's free, Jarrett, for her entire life, Juliana, but what she did should haunt her forever.
Well, and
never at peace.
But I don't have a lot of faith in that, because I've seen how manipulative she can be. But here's the thing. Let's assume for a moment now, what do you do with this? You have a witness who's lied. You have a witness who's played games. You have a witness who lived a lie under the roof at the crime scene. How do you put her on the stand? And she got a sweetheart deal. So all of these things are going to just expose their attack vectors for examination. How do you deal with that? Here's how you deal with it. Everything Juliana says has to be supported by another piece of evidence. Like if she says, I never went out to go to the zoo, we never left. Okay. The cell phone video, or the cell phone info should say it. She could say, I never really had to call Brendan back. He knew to come back.
Yeah.
That'll be supported. She'll say, when was Ryan shot and when did Brendan see Christine? What did Ryan walk into there? Like, what I don't understand is, did he walk in and see Christine and then think he was going into this knife play situation?
That's
and
what
they're hiding in the basement? I have no idea.
No. They said they weren't hiding in the basement. They said, she said they walked in together, both armed. But the confusing part is and this is when he was already in the house, they must have already brought the daughter to the basement, because she said we walked in both with guns. And I am taking this as either Christine wasn't around, or maybe she was. Clearly, if she heard 2 gunshots, she's going to come running down the stairs, right, or wherever she was. And I said this too, like, I don't know the layout of the house. I'm assuming the master bedroom where they were found is on the first floor, because I don't think you can drag a body down the stairs, let's say, or whatever.
We saw the house right after in the body cam footage. The house is pristine,
right? But there's stairs. But again, this happened in the master bedroom, so I'm thinking, it's got to be on the first floor. So I think what would be
and the stairs in that house are a weird angle if you look at them.
I think if they had a text from Juliana actually to Brendan saying, "I don't want to do this. Let's not do this," I think her credibility would go up. I really do. And so I'm hoping, because I want him convicted so badly, that they do have something like this in writing that says, "I don't want to do this, Brendan. This is wrong." Like, I'm hoping. But
yeah, I think the way she is susceptible to attack as a witness. The way to really build her credibility is to support what she's saying with forensic evidence, technology, anything you could say that supports it. If she says, Brendan and I went to the gun range on this day, we have a receipt of them going there, anything that supports, that allows for the jury to say, how much of a leap of faith are we really taking by buying what Juliana is saying?
Yeah.
When it's supported or corroborated by all this independent evidence. So I think that's important. I just think I have never seen someone who conspired to commit a murder of an innocent woman and young mother get that much of a deal. By the way, there's 2 victims here. Joe Ryan's a victim too. So you got 2 dead people because these 2 wanted to have their affair, and she's walking out after a year, and she shot a gun. She was part of the planning. She was, believe me, without Juliana, this wouldn't have happened.
100%. So maybe there's a chance that the judge gives her 10 years. What do you think? The maximum?
Well, the judge doesn't have to. That's the other thing. So here's an important point. The DA's recommending a year. She's not going to be sentenced until she testifies. So you have this piano hanging over you, right?
Yeah.
The DA has you by, in Italian, we say the cagliones, right? So that's hanging over you. You got to behave. You got to tell them the story they want to hear, or they'll say it's the truth, right?
Yep.
But a judge is not bound by that recommendation. A judge could say, look, I understand you told the truth. I understand the DA is recommending a year. I have 2 dead people. I have someone in front of me who has, again, made a decision that's in her best interests. And right, I'm giving you the max.
She's not doing this because she feels guilty or she feels bad about what she did. I
think she's going to get cranked.
What do you mean? Like,
I think she's going to get a stiffer sentence than that. The judge isn't obligated. Now, I've had that conversation with judges in the back where you say, Judge, can you live with this? Because I'm going back out. Like, I will sit with the judge and a defense lawyer. We're in negotiations for a plea. I'm like, Judge, I'm not going to suggest this if you're not going to oppose it. And the judge will tell you, guys and gals, I can live with that. Like, I can live with 3 to 6. Let's do it. But, you could walk in there and say, we're recommending a year, and you're dumping a plate of shit on the judge. And they're like, nah, that ain't happening.
I hope that's the case. And what's bothering me about this case is, like, whenever it's talked about, wherever, the comments are like, didn't she know not to hire an au pair that looked like that? And it's just like, are you guys seriously slamming and shaming this woman who, are you fucking kidding me? I mean, I'm just like disgusted with that. Don't hire like a hot au pair. I mean, Oh yeah, because the first thing I think of is that my husband and our hot babysitter are going to conspire to murder me. Who would, I mean, really, guys? Like, it's just shitty. I mean, it's shitty. Like,
yeah, well, look, you can't victim blame Christine here.
No. I mean, oh my gosh. Like, you can't victim blame anyone. Joseph Ryan, you can't victim blame. It's just like, it's horrible. So anyway, we will keep everybody posted on this case because we are following it. I am very anxious for Brendan's trial. I want to see this guy go down so bad. You've no idea.
He's going down.
Yes. But anyway, we will be back next week or before with another show or possibly a live. And we appreciate everybody watching.
And two people just talked, well, how long? 55 minutes and didn't mention the election.
There we go. Yeah, no, we're not going there. But all right, guys, don't forget to hit like or subscribe. And yeah, share our show with your friends. Share it with everyone. See you next time. Bye, Jarrett.
Happening, you're trying to figure out ultimately what is
it's still a mystery as to why it took them